Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss what on the face of it should be a gift to Labour. The Conservative Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride has suggested that pensions are too generous and should be reduced. So just at the point at which Labour have unnecessarily annoyed lots of pensioners, an important voting bloc, the Conservatives have tied themselves to the same albatross. Seems particularly reckless for a party which is actually more dependent on pensioner votes than any other, at the point at which they have a lot of rebuilding to do, to announce that pension guarantees like the triple lock should be scrapped. But first, for daily political commentary, please click the subscribe button so you don't miss out. So, the UK state pension is below average for advanced economies. And yet the Conservatives came up with a pretty good way to conceal this from their ultra important retired voters under David Cameron over 10 years ago. They came up with the triple lock. Marvellous policy. The state pension would increase in line with CPI inflation, average wage growth, or 2.5%, whichever's the highest. A brilliant way of making pensioners think that the Tories were doing right by them, especially as they promote wage suppression and generally handle the economy quite badly. Arguably a more expensive policy under a Labour government where wage growth is better. So it's a double win for the Tories. Makes it sound like they're protecting pensioners, so they're never motivated to find out, well, how much do they get in other countries? And gives a financial headache for Labour because the policy will cost them more. But now Mel Stride, the Shadow Chancellor for the Tories, has suggested that the triple lock is unsustainable and scrapping it should be considered. Now, the Telegraph have also decided to write an article backing up the proposal. They're eager to promote this idea, but I'll get onto that in a moment. Politics first. So you ask yourselves why the Conservatives are so good at attracting the votes of pensioners. Partly it's because they tend to own their own homes and don't pay certain types of tax, so it's easier to reduce the other taxes which favour them. But there's another angle as well. They play the fear factor, make the elderly feel vulnerable, then claim to be the only ones who will protect them from this threat. And because the threat is often imaginary, other parties generally don't bother to address it. So they deliberately foster an attitude of vulnerability amongst this voting group. So now imagine that this group, the Conservative Party, then decides to threaten their financial safety. Because the triple lock was a brilliant policy politically. When Rishi Sunak broke it during the last Parliament, I thought that they would, the Tories would suffer a lot more in the polling than they did. But it was perhaps partly because they were already suffering from a lot of other things, and because it had been restored in time for the election that they got away with it. But to actually announce plans to drop the triple lock permanently, and at this point, should be an absolute gift to Labour. Keir Starmer had better register this immediately, because it doesn't matter whether the Tories go ahead and adopt this policy formally or not. Labour can now say they're going to do it, because Stride has talked about it being unsustainable. He hasn't just said, a bit tight, we might have to think about it. We won't be able to commit to it just at this point. No. He's labelled it unsustainable. That means he's being clear it's not a policy that's possible to maintain. So if the Tories don't include the policy in their manifesto at the next election, Labour will say they're going to break the triple lock anyway, because they are on record as saying they don't believe they can maintain it. And if Labour do not go hard on this at every opportunity over the next few years, I give up on them. But then there was a supportive article in the Telegraph. Now, in brief, they described the state pension as a Ponzi scheme whereby you need more and more people paying into it at the bottom. Now, this, of course, is not quite true for a couple of reasons. First, if your economy is growing consistently, all you actually need is a stable population. You can afford a growing population of working age. That works even better. Second, a Ponzi scheme eventually runs out of investors, but a country doesn't run out of workers. But where they do have a point is that because people are living longer and our birth rate is in decline, there is an increasing shortfall between what the retired population costs the state and what we can reasonably expect working people to pay. We can agree on this point, but it's their hazy conclusions which miss out some important factors. See, at the end of the article, the Telegraph attack others for not confronting this, but they're not confronting it either. Not only do they not propose a solution, they don't even mention several possible solutions for their readers to pick and choose. What they are arguing for is that the state pension, which is already poor by Western standards, remember, be further degraded. But that means creating more poverty amongst pensioners. This is why they go no further with their article. But if you want to address the problem without creating poverty, are there solutions? Well, although an actual solution will be complex to implement, I am sure, the basics are fairly easy to understand. See, the facts of the matter are we have a growing retired population, right? People are living longer, more people are retiring, right? But we also have a shrinking birth rate. This means mathematically one of three things must happen, or some combination of them. The first, we need more workers injected into the system. The second, we need more money injected into the system. Or third, we need to impoverish the retired. Now, I suppose there's a fourth option, which is a sort of Logan's Run type scenario, but I don't think even the Telegraph would go there. I think even the Spectator would think twice about it. But the Telegraph do not bother to explore the first two of those options. So they leave the reader with the impression, without actually spelling it out, that as distasteful as it might be, the third option is the Hobson's choice, because there are no other options. But there are ways of utilising the first two. The first, injecting more workers into the system. No, that doesn't mean telling people to have more kids, because not only do the people who say, oh, have more kids, not only are they the ones who, when you then lose your job and you need benefits, go, well, why did you have kids if you can't afford them? They're also the ones who are opposed to state funding for childcare and other adjustments needed to allow parents to go to work. But let's say, even if that was successful, like even if you did that and you go, okay, childcare, blah, 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 let's not put barriers in the way of people having children, more people have children, you wouldn't get the benefits of that success for decades, because children take a little while to grow up. And according to the Telegraph, the pension problem could be pretty major in 10 years' time, right? So what you need is something shorter term. What you ideally need is a workforce that just comes into the country, already skilled up, spends time working, then goes away again. What do we call this? I mean, it's such an advantage, isn't it? It means lower education costs because they've already had their education, lower healthcare costs because they're at that sort of age where they're generally fit and healthy, lower pension costs because they retire back in their own country. Immigrants, that's what we call it. Yeah, basically encourage immigration rather than discourage it. But they don't want to go there. They want to throttle our access to a workforce and then complain that the workforce isn't big enough to support retirees. The second is to pump more money into the system. Now, obviously, this can't mean just whacking up taxes on ordinary people. They're already at record levels. But there's lots of capacity to substantially increase taxes on those who don't pay a great deal, proportionally. Yeah, cracking down on tax avoidance and tax evasion, that could bring a bit in. Labour are already looking at this. They're already hiring more tax collectors. So that, we're going to go some way to raising more money that way. I don't know how hard they're going to push it. But another is taxing the idle money in the system, the money that doesn't do anything. Like, as we keep saying, you give more money to ordinary workers, they'll spend it. It goes round and round and round. They pay taxes on their income in form of income tax, national insurance, so on. Then they buy things, VAT. Then that money goes to other people who buy things as well, more VAT, more income tax, blah, 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 blah. The money gets used, it goes round the economy, and lots of it ends up going back to the Treasury. But if you give money to people who just put it on a pile, maybe in the Cayman Islands or something, or just buy land and do nothing with it. Now, some people push the idea of a wealth tax, literally meaning apply a percentage to people's registered wealth. Utterly self-defeating, doesn't work. If you tax wealth in that way, the wealthy just move their wealth like they always do. It will actually end up reducing tax revenues. But we can get serious about land tax. You can't move land, so tax that. But the Telegraph don't want to go there either because their tax-dodging billionaire owner would not approve. So because they rule out all the ways in which you might address the problem in the long term, they are left arguing that the elderly should be made poorer. But it's one thing for a newspaper to say that. How does it make sense for the Conservative Party to say it? Could be a very costly mistake for them. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, you can join for memberships. Thanks for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later.